How do you feel knowing that your groundwater can make you sick? How do you feel knowing that the groundwater is causing harm to the wildlife, economy, and environment? How do you feel knowing that you are one of the main reasons for groundwater contamination? Let that sink in. You could be a reason for health risks, harm to wildlife, economy, and the environment. Do you know about groundwater contamination? I want to discuss what it is with you, the sources of groundwater contamination, and how you can help prevent it. According to All About Filters, groundwater contamination is when contaminants in groundwater exceed the levels deemed safe for the use of specific aquifer use. Groundwater contamination can come from a lot of different places and can be found almost anywhere in the world. According to the Groundwater Foundation, groundwater contamination occurs when man-made products such as gasoline, oil, road salts, and chemicals get into the groundwater and cause it to become unsafe and unfit for human use. Materials from the land surface can move through the soil and end up in the groundwater. The Environmental Protection Agency states that groundwater contamination is nearly always a result of human activity. In areas where population density is high and human use of the land is intensive, groundwater is especially vulnerable. Also in any activity where chemicals or waste may be released to the environment, whether intentionally or accidentally, has the potential to pollute groundwater. How about a few facts that show why we need to help prevent groundwater contamination? About 27 trillion gallons of groundwater are withdrawn for use in the U.S. each year. A gallon of water weighs about 8 pounds. The High Plains Aquifer covers 8 states and 175,000 miles. Did you know that 26% of household water use is for flushing the toilet, and about 25% of all the rainfall in the U.S. becomes groundwater? There are 4 main potential sources that break down into smaller sources. These 4 main sources are direct, indirect, man-made, and natural. Direct sources contain hazardous waste and landfills. All About Water states that hazardous waste is disposed of or dumped incorrectly. The chances of it spilling and leaching into soil and water are great. It's very likely for this type of spill to occur and go unnoticed. Landfills release toxins into the groundwater. The longer a landfill remains full of waste, the more the toxins from the waste seep into the soil below and around the landfill. This leads to groundwater contamination almost immediately. Indirect sources are atmospheric pollutions and petroleum fuels. Atmospheric pollutants means when surface water in the area becomes polluted. This can lead to those pollutants evaporating into atmospheric air and water. Polluted air can drift into areas where humans are more present, and polluted rain can fall as acid rain. This damages the environment and can also cause serious health risks. Petroleum fuels. Diesel and gasoline are well-known indirect causes of groundwater pollution. When kept in underground storage, can leak and seep into the ground around them, leading to groundwater contamination. Man-made comes from septic systems, chemicals, and pesticides. Septic systems are usually the go-to solution to provide running water and pumping to people who do not have city-based water and sewage. They normally don't cause contamination, but when installed incorrectly or become damaged, it causes human waste to get into the soils. Chemicals like road salts, solvents, and chemicals used on roads, lawns, and around homes can be washed away by natural rainfall. They then seep into the soil and reach the groundwater. Pesticides also get washed into the groundwater the same way as the chemicals. Natural waste comes from animal waste, arsenic, and radon. Animal urine and feces left behind by animals seep into the ground and cause some pollution to the groundwater. Arsenic is found in rocks. When groundwater passes through or sits in the rocks for too long, it can cause arsenic to build up in the groundwater to levels that are capable of poisoning animals or people who drink it. Radon gas is also another natural pollutant that can nevertheless cause serious problems. If consumed, it can be fatal. Groundwater contamination leaves some pretty bad effect on health, wildlife, the economy, and the environment. Drinking contaminated groundwater can have serious health effects. Diseases such as hepatitis and dysentery may be caused by contamination from septic tank waste. Poisoning may be caused by toxins that have leached into well water supplies. Wildlife can also be harmed by contaminated groundwater. Other long-term effects, such as certain types of cancer, may also result from exposure to polluted water. Groundwater contamination can cause the economy to suffer, depreciating value of land. When groundwater becomes contaminated, that area becomes less capable of sustaining human, animal, and plant life. It also causes a less stable industry. Industries rely on groundwater. When the groundwater becomes contaminated, the convenience of it is stripped away and the industries are less capable of stable production. The environment can be altered too. Groundwater contamination can cause certain types of nutrients that are necessary in small amounts to become far too abundant to sustain normal life in a given ecosystem. Fish will start dying quickly, and other animals can become sick from too much certain types of nutrients in the water they drink. Groundwater contamination slowly leads to contamination of the surface water as well. When this happens, animals and plants that live in the area become sick and die. This is a huge part of the destruction of the wetlands. There are ways to prevent groundwater contamination. The Environmental Protection Agency made the Safe Drinking Water Act. This act established 3 drinking water source protection programs. They are the Wellhead Protection Program, Sole Source Aquifer Program, and the Source Water Assessment Program. The Clean Water Act regulates groundwater that is shown to have a connection with surface water. It sets standards for allowable pollutant discharges to surface water. WorstPolluted.org states that you can remediate groundwater. It is difficult to do this unless it is a small defined area, and therefore the emphasis has to be on prevention. This is based on protection of sensitive aquifers, control of discharges and releases, and provision of drainage and sanitation systems to avert pollution discharges. But what can you do personally? The Department of Energy and Environmental Protection gives us some options of what we can do. When you're at home, you can properly dispose of all waste, test underground fuel tanks for leaks, safely store all chemicals and fuels, and minimize the use of chemicals. At work, you may have waste, hazardous materials, and stormwater. For water disposal, properly dispose of all waste. Ensure proper wastewater discharge connections and plug and cover waste dumpsters. For hazardous materials, safely store, handle, and use chemicals and fuels. Monitor underground fuel and chemicals and reduce or substitute use of chemicals. When there is storm water, keep chemicals and waste safe from rain. Isolate drains from storage and loading areas and use de-icing salt and pesticides sparingly. When you are in town, ensure that land use plans and regulations protect important water supply aquifers and well fields. Consider important aquifers when acquiring open space, and ensure that town facilities practice good pollution prevention. So, how do you feel now that we have discussed what groundwater contamination is and how it happens? What do you think about the effects that can happen from groundwater? And are you going to take any consideration any of the topics we have discussed and how you can help? Any questions? I don't know.
No. Good job.